And welcome to FISM News. I'm Samuel Case.
And I'm Renata Kiss.
And tonight, J.D. Vance accepts the Republican nomination for vice president.
Meanwhile, the Secret Service director agrees to testify before Congress.
And Chuck Schumer asks Biden to drop out of the presidential race. Well, as I just said, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance officially accepted the Republican nomination for vice president last night, echoing Donald Trump's calls for unity in a nearly 40-minute-long acceptance speech.
I want to respond to his call for unity myself. We have a big tent in this party on everything from national security to economic policy. But my message to you, my fellow Republicans, is we love this country and we are united to win. And so tonight, Mr. Chairman, I stand here humbled and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude to say I officially accept your nomination to be Vice President of the United States of America.
Growing up in the poorest regions of Appalachia, Vance emphasized the plight of American workers and also vowed to fight for their jobs.
We need a leader who's not in the pocket of big business, but answers to the working man, union and non-union alike. A leader who won't sell out to multinational corporations, but will stand up for American companies and American industry. A leader who rejects Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's Green New scam and fights to bring back our great American factories. We need President Donald J. Trump.
The appeal to blue-collar workers has been a key part of Trump's Make America Great Again movement, along, of course, with a greater emphasis on national identity and pride. And that was a theme with which Vance closed out the night.
America is not just an idea. It is a group of people with a shared history and a common future. It is, in short, a nation. People will not fight for abstractions, but they will fight for their home. And if this movement of ours is going to succeed, and if this country is going to thrive, our leaders have to remember that America is a nation and its citizens deserve leaders who put its interests first.
Vance's speech sets the stage for Donald Trump, who is set to speak around 10 p.m. Eastern Time tonight.
And Senator J.D. Vance wasn't the only one praising the president. A World War II veteran and Trump's granddaughter, Kai Trump, also gave heartfelt speeches about the former president. 98-year-old veteran William Pacrell, a husband and a father of 11 children, said he's sad to see what Biden and his administration have done to America, the country he loves so well.
It hurts my heart to see what our current president and vice president have done to the country I love so well. They humiliated us in Afghanistan. We pushed around in China. Terrorists run wild in the Middle East.
He said that if Trump was commander-in-chief once again, he would re-enlist in a heartbeat.
And President Trump, back in commander-in-chief, I would go back to re-enlist today.
Meanwhile, Trump's granddaughter, 17-year-old Kai Trump, showed the soft side of her grandpa.
To me, he's just a normal grandpa. He gives us candy and soda when our parents aren't looking. He always wants to know how we're doing in school. When I made the high honor roll, he printed it out to show his friends how proud he was of me. When we play golf together, if I'm not on his team, he'll try to get inside of my head. I know. And he's always surprised that I don't let him get to me. But I have to remind him, I'm a Trump too.
Some truly wonderful speeches last night. We look forward to hearing some more tonight as well. Meanwhile, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle has agreed to testify before Congress next week after receiving a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee, that is. It comes as Republicans have grown increasingly critical of the Secret Service as more information now emerges about the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, with House Speaker Mike Johnson calling on her to resign. The tension has led to a heated moment at the RNC last night, where a group of Republican senators were filmed following Cheadle around and asking her questions.
This is exactly what you were doing today on the call.
This was an assassination attempt. You owe the people answers. You owe President Trump answers.
The House Oversight Committee said in a statement, quote, Americans demand and deserve answers from Director Cheadle and about the attempted assassination of President Trump and the Secret Service's egregious failures.
Meanwhile, local police are now contradicting Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle's claims that there were police inside the building where Trump's would-be assassin aimed at the former president. We mentioned yesterday that local police blamed a lack of manpower for the incident, and officials are now confirming that the police warned the Secret Service that they did not have enough people to secure the building. District Attorney Richard Goldinger said the Secret Service was informed that the local police department did not have manpower to assist with securing that building. Cheadle has previously claimed that the Secret Service did not secure the building because the slanted roof was unsafe. That claim has already been debunked by photographic evidence showing 2 other counter-snipers on slanted rooftops. So far, neither the police nor the Secret Service has taken complete responsibility for the event. The DHS Inspector General has now opened a formal investigation into the incident after President Biden had also requested an independent review of the shooting.
Meanwhile, less than only a week since Trump was shot, the former president's opponents are refusing to turn down the heat, sadly. Rick Wilson, co-founder of the anti-Trump Republican group The Lincoln Project, doubled down this week on his 2015 comments, saying the donor class is, quote, going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump.
100 other MAGA commentators and social media types and scamfluencers are attacking me, saying, oh, well, you once said the donors have to put a bullet in Trump. Folks, metaphor and rhetoric are different. He is not a martyr. He is not a saint. He is not a good man. He is not a great man. I am glad he lived.
His comments came the same day the Lincoln Project directly compared Trump to Adolf Hitler in a new video. Meanwhile, some of Trump's opponents, such as former RNC chair Michael Steele, are even questioning whether Trump was shot to begin with.
We've not received a medical report from the hospital, nor have we received a medical report from the campaign or from the Trump organization about the extent of the damage to his ear. If he was shot by a high-caliber bullet, there should probably be very little ear there. What is the extent and nature of the damage to his ear? Was it caused by a bullet, as opposed to, as some reports from those on the scene, other reporters, saying that it was actually shards of glass from the teleprompter itself, not the bullet? So there are a lot of questions around that ear.
Following the shooting, Trump released a statement saying a bullet did, in fact, strike his ear. And as far as the broken glass theory goes, new photos from the scene do appear to show the teleprompters were completely intact after the shooting. And up next, more top Democrats are calling on President Biden to step down. We'll see what they're saying and more after this short break.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common, the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Do you know what you are supporting when you purchase mutual funds and stocks? Think about it. When you invest in a company, you make a decision to support the things that company supports. And it may not be things that you agree with. Financial Issues is a ministry teaching people like you how to invest biblically, responsibly, keeping your investments clear of companies that may support an ungodly agenda. Learn more by going to financialissues.org. Financialissues.org.
But I felt very comfortable in that decision because I found a lot of support. Like everyone here, always made sure keep in contact with me. This is what ultimately changed my decision. Knowing that I had all this support that I didn't know I had. Now that he's here, he's 4 months old. I look at him and I honestly it just makes me want to cry.
Hey there, and welcome back to FISM News. I'm Samuel Case. Before we get into all the news surrounding President Biden, we do have a quick update to Trump's classified documents case down in Florida. Special counsel Jack Smith has now appealed Judge Eileen Cannon's ruling to toss out the case on the grounds that Smith was improperly appointed since he wasn't approved by Congress. Smith's office disagrees, arguing his appointment is in line with legal precedent.
Meanwhile, President Biden tested positive for COVID yesterday, which means he will now self-isolate in his Delaware home. The White House posted on social media yesterday that President Biden is vaccinated, boosted, and he is experiencing mild symptoms following a positive COVID-19 test. He will be returning to Delaware, where he will self-isolate and will continue to carry out all of his duties fully during that time. The president's physician also wrote a note detailing Biden's current physical state related to the virus. He confirmed that Biden is otherwise doing fine and he's taking Paxlovid. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said in a statement that the president contracted COVID after his first event in Las Vegas. Here's Janet Margarita, the CEO of Unidos US, announcing Biden's absence in Vegas.
I was just on the phone with President Biden, and he shared his deep disappointment at not being able to join us this afternoon. The president has been at many events, as we all know, and he just tested positive for COVID. So, of course, we understand that he needs to take the precautions that have been recommended.
At the same time, MSNBC's Joy Reid is already trying to compare Biden's illness with former President Trump's near-death experience.
These two men are both elderly. Donald Trump is an elderly man who, for whatever reason, was given 9 seconds to take a iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. Weird situation. We'll figure that out one day. But his survival of that and bouncing right back and going right to his convention is being conveyed in the media world as a sign of strength. This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should he be fine in a couple of days, doesn't that convey exactly the same thing? That he's strong enough, older than Trump, to have gotten something that used to really be fatal to people his age. So if he does fine out of it and comes back and is able to do rallies, isn't that exactly the same? I mean, it's not exactly the same. It's not the same incident, but it's an elderly man coming through out of an illness. It should.
Meanwhile, the walls appear to be closing in for President Biden as more top Democrats ask him to step aside from the race. According to a story first broken by Republican operatives on the Ruthless podcast, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer spoke with Biden over the weekend, making the case for him to leave the 2024 race.
It's my understanding that he got in his car and he got in the car that was driven for him out to Delaware to have a private one-on-one audience with the President of the United States, Joe Biden.
No staff?
None. And what happened when he got there?
Well, it's our understanding that he was going to lay out the case for Joe Biden and why it was very, very difficult for his party to survive this election if he's still in office, or at least still running for president.
The news was then seemingly also confirmed by ABC's Jonathan Karl, who said Schumer's staff wouldn't deny the meeting took place.
I am told that this was a one-on-one meeting, just the Senate leader and the president, and that Chuck Schumer forcefully made the case that it would be better for Biden, better for the Democratic Party, and better for the country if he were to bow out of the race. I am also told that Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, has expressed similar views directly to the president.
And it's not just Schumer either. New reporting from the Washington Post says former President Barack Obama is also pressuring Biden to drop out, reportedly telling Biden his chances of beating Trump are, quote, greatly diminished. At the same time, top Democrats now tell Axios that they think it's possible Biden could drop out of the race as soon as this weekend.
We'll have to see about that. Meanwhile, the American public seems to agree with Democrat politicians. A new poll shows almost 2/3 of liberal Americans think Biden should drop out of that race. According to a new AP Norc poll, only 3 out of 10 Democrats are extremely or very confident that the president has the mental ability to carry on. This is a 40% decrease compared to the same poll in February. This comes despite Biden claiming that the polls are lying and that the average American still supports him. AP noted, however, that the poll was conducted before the Saturday shooting, so it's unclear if the event further influenced people's opinions. A poll interview after the attempted assassination indicates no change regarding Biden. And the poll also found that Vice President Kamala Harris's popularity in the polls is similar to Biden. Overall, 65% of Democrats think Biden should withdraw, while 35% think he should stay.
And in light of all of this chaos, the DNC says, at least for now, that it's still moving forward with a virtual roll call to nominate Joe Biden as the party's nominee. According to the DNC, that roll call is now scheduled to take place between August 1st and August 7th, ahead of the party's convention a few weeks later. The DNC had already planned to hold the roll call later this month, but had pushed back the date after critics accused the DNC of attempting to basically rush the nomination process in order to avoid debate around President Biden's fitness for office. On Monday, Democratic lawmakers circulated a letter that called an early roll call a, quote, unprecedented action, which would effectively accelerate the nomination process by nearly a month. And up next, we'll be shifting away from politics to get some updates in the economy. We'll be right back after a moment in history.
Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Udinsky. Well, the 5th century AD is one of those kind of strange time periods in history. Do we still call it the Roman Empire, even though the Western Empire is basically dead at this point? Is the known world Christian, even though Christianity had really only spread the distance of the Eastern and Western empires? Or have we reached the Middle Ages yet? All those questions are important. And then what do we make of the bloodshed and barbarism of this century? All these questions are actually related to one of the most famous warlords in history, a barbaric king of the Baltic region who was known in the Christian world as the Scourge of God, Attila the Hun. Now, Attila's date of birth is unknown. It's likely, though, he was born sometime near the turn of the 4th century into the 5th. Attila's legacy is in many ways a conglomeration of many different things. First of all, he was the king of the Huns, and they were a somewhat diverse nomadic people that dominated lands stretching from the Bohemian regions of Central Europe all the way into the Baltic and into Western Asia. The Huns were among the many tribes jockeying for power in the decades during the collapse of the Western Roman Empire and the rise of Christendom in the pre- and very early medieval world. Now, Attila consistently interfaced with and warred with Christian peoples, having actually personal contact one time with the Roman Pope Leo the Great, who in 452 allegedly convinced Attila to stop his invasion into Western Europe. Now, although Attila had this and other personal contacts with Christians, he himself was not a Christian. In addition to his title Scourge of God, he was also referred to as the Scourge of the Romans, having dealt severe blows to the Western Empire in the mid-5th century during his rule, which lasted, by the way, roughly from 434 AD to his death in 453. So Attila battled against both the Western and the Eastern empires. Much of his wars were actually against the Constantinopolitan dynasty, which was on an upward trajectory, unlike its Roman counterpart, which was basically ready to fall by this time. Though Attila enjoyed some success against the Eastern Empire, he could never conquer it and spent much of his rule simply as a thorn in the side of the Eastern Empire rather than as a victor over it. He enjoyed much more success in the West with a successful invasion of the Roman province of Gaul later in his reign. Now, it was this invasion, by the way, that was stopped by the pleas of Pope Leo the Great. Now, history tells us that Attila was actually planning to attack the Eastern Empire again in 453 before his untimely death. Like many warlords of the Old World, Attila enjoyed multiple wives, including Honoria, who was a member of the imperial family of the Western Empire. Attila married another of his wives, Ildiko, in 453, and after the wedding celebration of much revelry, was discovered dead in his wedding chambers. Historians have never been able to confirm whether he was killed by his new bride or by an enemy or by natural causes, in part because the men who buried him were immediately put to death themselves so that his grave would remain a secret. And though many believe he's buried somewhere today in modern Hungary, to this day no one knows where the body of the infamous Attila the Hun rests. Thanks for joining me once again for a moment in history.
On the day I found I was pregnant, I was full of emotions and I just was so overwhelmed, and I don't know if I'm ready for this huge life-altering, changing commitment. I had individuals around me not wanting me to have this child. And somehow, and I was driving and I saw the Women's Help Center sign and I immediately turned in. That just took relief off of me, and I was like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. They gave me the confidence and the support that I needed to be able to go out and face the world. First time I held Finnegan, I just lit up with joy. I was so excited. This little boy that I had in my life, he is loving and generous. Watching him just grow and flourish into this incredible human being has just been so rewarding and so uplifting. Looking back, I don't know what I would do without him, because I needed him more than I think he needed me.
Do you know what you are supporting when you purchase mutual funds and stocks? Think about it. When you invest in a company, you make a decision to support the things that that company supports. And it may not be things that you agree with. Financial Issues is a ministry teaching people like you how to invest biblically, responsibly, keeping your investments clear of companies that may support an ungodly agenda. Learn more by going to financialissues.org. Financialissues.org.
And welcome back to FISM News. I'm Renata Kiss. Well, let's start in the economy, where the Fed is now saying the U.S. economy is slowing down along with inflation. The Federal Reserve's latest Beige Book reports slight economic growth over the past 3 months. Significantly, 5 of the 12 districts reported flat or declining economic activity. That's 3 more districts than in the previous report. It's a slowdown that businesses expect to continue through the end of the year. Unemployment also ticked higher and is now at 4.1%. At the same time, turnover in the labor market declined. Fed Governor Christopher Waller says the central U.S. bank is getting closer to cutting rates following the new data.
I believe the current data are consistent with achieving a soft landing. And I'll be looking for data over the next couple of months to buttress that view. So while I don't believe we have reached our final destination, I do believe we are getting closer to the time when a cut in the policy rate is warranted.
At the same time, the U.S. is also now producing more oil than any other nation in the world, and that's despite opposition from OPEC, climate activists, and also the Biden administration itself. The historic levels come from advances in shale production technology that allow for more efficient harvesting of natural gas. For just an idea of how effective this technology is, 600 rigs today can now produce more than twice the energy of 2,000 rigs just a few years ago. This is despite the Biden administration's ongoing opposition to investing in fossil fuel infrastructure as they spend billions of dollars on green energy.
Meanwhile, in culture, diversity, equity, and inclusion teams are proving not to be a profitable business practice this year following conservative backlash. Microsoft reportedly laid off its entire DEI team at the start of this month. An email obtained by Business Insider said it had changing business needs. On Monday, the country's top human resources group announced they are cutting equity policies. The Society for Human Resource Management said they will now use the acronym IND. The tractor company John Deere also announced yesterday they were scaling back diversity policies after facing boycott calls from their conservative fan base. In addition to company DEI policy, the tractor manufacturer was exposed last week for supporting pride events that target children. Here's conservative activist and commentator Robbie Starbuck.
This is an event that John Deere sponsored called Capital City Pride's Little Rainbow Run. It was for kids as young as 3 years old to engage in pride. And side note, I don't care if you're gay or straight, kids should not be celebrating what type of sex you like. It's weird, it's creepy. Here's a fun photo we found on LinkedIn. Yes, this is John Deere employees being trained on the genderbread man. Yes, the genderbread man. If you're not familiar with that, it's the whole concept that basically gender is completely fluid. There's no such thing as your biological sex. You just are whatever you think you are.
John Deere says it will no longer participate in cultural awareness festivals and will remove socially motivated messages in their training. But the conservative fan base says it's not enough yet. They've accused the company of internalizing the policies instead of making genuine changes.
Looks like more reporting will be needed on that to find out. Elsewhere, Democrats are willing to go to some rather extreme lengths to codify abortion into federal law. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren appeared on The View yesterday, where she said Democrats will end or suspend the Senate filibuster to ram it through should they control both chambers of Congress after the election.
So we can make Roe versus Wade law of the land if we have, now I have to be clear, we got to have a majority in the House, skinny majority. We can take a really skinny majority in the Senate. I'll take 50 and a Democrat in the White House. We have those three things. We will suspend the filibuster. We have the votes for that on Roe versus Wade. First vote Democrats will take in the Senate, first substantive vote, is to make Roe versus Wade law of the land again in America. Count on it.
That's news. That's newsy.
And Warren's not alone either. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi also floated the idea a few months ago. Take a look.
President Biden gets reelected, and there's a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. What can President Biden and the Democrats do to protect abortion nationwide?
Very clearly, we can enshrine into the law Roe v. Wade. And that makes a big difference.
That would take 2/3 in the Senate. You think the Democrats can get 2/3 in the Senate?
No, it doesn't get 2/3. No, it doesn't. I mean, 60 votes is the Senate now, but if we win 50 plus 1 in the Senate, 50 plus the vice president, we can overturn the 60-vote rule.
The filibuster.
The filibuster, and pass it with a 51-vote margin.
Pelosi and Warren say without the filibuster, Democrats could push through any number of their priorities.
Meanwhile, conservatives are already challenging California's parental notification ban almost before the ink could dry on the new law. The legislation is a statewide prohibition against notifying parents of a gender dysphoring student. A lawsuit filed on Tuesday calls it an egregious attack on parents' God-given and constitutional rights. The case was filed on behalf of a California school district that has been fighting the state to protect a parent's right to know. School board president Sonia Shah says legislators rammed the law through to overturn their notification policy.
And let's hopefully those lawsuits will go somewhere, because it truly is an upsetting policy. We hope it gets stopped.
Right. We can only pray. Well, that's our program for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and please visit FISMnews.tv for more content.
And for more updates, you can also follow us on social media, or you can download the FISM app to take us on the go. Thanks so much, and God bless, and we'll see you next time with more news.